All right, guys, so let's build off of what we started last week. We'll do a quick review here. So in the assignment for this week, you should have already gotten these steps done, and we're focusing on these last components that we need in our design. And just to kind of pull this all together, I'm going to open up our presentation again. Review what our learning targets are. So being able to identify the vocabulary, being able to use the different components in your layout and design, and be able to create an actual 2-page music themed magazine spread using Photopea. Okay, so we talked about design, we talked about typography, what it means, and why visual hierarchy is important, right? In order to know what we're reading as we're looking at the layout, we need to have things either be larger if they're more important, or like body copy needs to be a font that's easy to read. So there's things that we need to think about in our overall design. And then we talked about the different components of a layout. So far we have worked on putting a headline in, an intro, a byline. And then this week, we're going to be focusing on bringing in that body text. I know some of you already started and kind of jumped ahead. We should already have an image in there, but we're going to think about the background and white space or negative space so we don't have anything too close to something else. So if it starts to look too busy, we might need to shrink it down in size, or maybe we need to just give a little breathing room, a little space around things. And then we're going to focus on today adding a drop cap, putting page numbers in a footer. And again, the footer can just be, a magazine name that you make up, or it could be an address, a website that you make up. And then you need to have a pull quote. And your pull quote could be a lyric from a song. It could be, just a little something that your musician or artist said. It's up to you what you want your pull quote to be. But your body copy, your body text is going to be lorem ipsum, and your intro could be lorem ipsum too if you didn't want to type something up. It is important to just do a quick review on the layout when it comes to body text or body copy. You can see here that we don't want something that bounces all over the place, right? We want something that's pretty consistent, even if it doesn't happen on both pages, since this is like the main, 2-page spread to our article. Maybe it just happens on one page, or maybe if it's in one section on one page and it's in another section consistently on the other page. We do not want to bounce all over the place when we're putting our body copy in. It's just confusing for the reader. All right, so far we've done our headline, our images, 1 to 2 at the most, so no more than 2, a byline, and our intro. So let's look at adding body copy, drop cap, page numbers, footer, and a pull quote, okay? So I'm gonna open up something I already started as a demo for some class last week. I don't remember what period it was, but let's look, and we'll go all the way back to the beginning. So if I'm making a new layout, remember for the requirement for the project that I need to have it be 11 inches by 17 inches. So you should have already started this last week where you opened up a new project in Photopea, and it's 11 inches tall by 17 inches wide, right? And then one of the things that we did is we turned on, so we went to view and we turned on our grid to kind of help us get some guides in here. And these blue lines are called guides. And in order to pull guides down, I need to make sure my rulers are on. So I'll go up to rulers and make sure they're checked. See how if I uncheck them, they disappear. So I want to make sure my rulers are on. So there's my ruler along the side and top. And I can click and pull down and add a guide. And the guides are kind of like training wheels. They help us kind of get everything lined up and looking sharp. And then we can turn off the guides when we're done. So when we started, we clicked and dragged a line over, a guide over, right? And then we put one along the edge, the bottom, the other side edge, and then the top. Okay, so we wanted to have what's called a bleed. So nothing should be happening of any consequence. So it was like no like writing on the edge. Like part of your picture could be there, but it's okay if it's cropped off that area. You don't want somebody's face to run off the edge or something. So keep things away from the bleed. Anything that's important should not be on that outside edge. Okay. The second thing we did is we clicked and we dragged a line to the middle, right? We're in between the 2 pages. And then we did a little space on either side of that middle line. And that's called the gutter. So this is the gutter in the middle, and we want, again, try to avoid having writing go right on top of the gutter. It's just if where the magazine would fold, right? So if the magazine is folding there, then we don't want to lose some of our important information in that fold. Okay, so we want to keep things out of what's called the gutter in the middle. Okay, so we use that grid to help us kind of get our positioning. We also brought over some guidelines by clicking and dragging, again, clicking and dragging, and we brought over some guidelines for where we think body copy, we might want to put that. So in this one, we have a 1, 2, 3 column setup on each page. 1, 2, 3 column setup. So if I decide to use that on both pages, I have a place for my body copy to go and kind of just frame out where I want it to fit. I could do only 2 columns if I wanted to. I would not do 1 column. That's just not typical, and it becomes too long of a line for somebody to read in a magazine layout. So I have a 3 column set up for body copy. So I'm going to turn off my grid. So I'll go to show, uncheck my grid, and now you see just those guidelines, okay? So let me kind of get you caught up. So I just turned off the eyes on the layers that I already have done. So the first layer that we had, we brought in our picture. And for this one, we ended up doing a gradient on this side using 2 colors from our picture. So remember, when you're choosing colors, you can just go to the color picker down here and you can just choose colors from your picture. And we did a gradient for this one. So we clicked over here. You could always do a solid color for a paint bucket tool fill, or we did a gradient for this one. We clicked on gradient and we went up to the top, and then we could click on where the colors are. So if you double click here, I can then choose a color, something from my picture. See how my little plus signs down here? So I choose a color. Then I could come to the other side, double click, and choose another color. And you can see how we got the gradient here. So then I would hit OK, and I would just draw a line and have another gradient. Okay, so if that's something that you want to do as a gradient, that's the process you go through. We had put in a headline, and we put some guidelines kind of around where our headline was. So this was our headline. Now for you, you're not typing the word headline, you're actually going to type what you want the name of your article to be. So it could be the artist name, it could be, I don't know, just be creative. Come up with a headline. Okay, so I just put the word headline in there just as a placeholder so you can see that's where you would type in your headline. But for you, don't write the word headline. Actually come up with, a creative name for your article. Okay. The second thing we brought in, and you can see that our guides are kind of roughly around where our headline is. And then the second thing we brought in was the byline. Now look at the difference in font, right? We have a very big headline. It's a display font, which means it's something that's really kind of fancy. It stands out. It catches your attention. When you compare that to the byline, look, it's a much smaller font. It's very simple. We don't want to compete. We want people to focus on this, right? We don't want them to compete and look at the byline more than the headline. So that's that hierarchy, that visual hierarchy that we're talking about. The next thing we did was we added an intro in here. And for our intro, again, it's a little bit smaller font than the headline, but it's bigger than the byline. And that tells people what's more important. My headline is the most important. My intro, or my stand first, is the second most important. And then my third most important is the byline, right? Because it's smaller, it's not as bold, it doesn't stand out as much. Okay. So we chose a different font that's not as busy as the headline to put in the intro section. Okay. Now, one of the things that we talked about that could be tricky if you use a gradient is that if you have light writing, like a lighter color of your writing for your font, you want to put that on a dark background. And if you have a dark writing for your font, you want to put that on the light background, right? So it's vice versa, so whatever it is. So in this case, it kind of got iffy here because we do have a lighter font, but then it's starting to get lighter down here. So for our body copy, we'll come in and do that in a darker font so you can still read it, okay? Now, one of the things that I did not cover with everybody is something that adds a little bit extra to make your letter stand out, just to give it a little bit more, interest visually, and it's called effects. So if you look at the headline here, if I go to my type tool, you can see this is my font style that I have chosen. It's set up as regular. There's my size. There's my color that I already chose. But if you notice here on my layer, I have something that says off to the side, EFF. These are called effects. So what I did is I'm on my headline layer, I clicked it and had it selected, and then I went down to the bottom of the layers palette and I chose layer style. See down here where it says EFF? So it's like next to where the chain is and where that circle is kind of half and half. So EFF I clicked on, and if I double click, I can open it up and it will show me a box here, and I can choose some different options on what I want to add as an extra feature of effect with this font. So on this one, I put a bevel and emboss. So I'm going to take that off. That's what it looks like originally. That's what it looks like with bevel and emboss. Okay, I can click on each one of these and kind of see what it looks like and see if I like it. Is that too dark? Maybe I don't need that one. I'll go to my texture. Do I want to put texture in there? No, I can't really even tell that there's texture there. I can go to stroke and I can add a stroke to it. I could choose a color. So maybe I wanted to make my font stand out even more. You can see I just chose a color over here and see the difference. So I could add an outline around it if I wanted to. I think adding another color becomes a little bit too busy. So I'm going to uncheck stroke. I can do an inner shadow. And then I think it gets a little too dark for mine. So I'm going to uncheck that. There's an inner glow. I don't know if I really notice too much that does. It's pretty slight. We'll leave it. Satin puts like an overall color, kind of darkening it, and I can choose how, like the angle, how much of it, the distance. I can play around with all of those features. I don't think we need that one. I can put color over the top if I wanted to. This one has red chosen. Obviously, red does not work with my color scheme here. But if I wanted to, I could choose a color from over here. And just so you can kind of see what that looks like, right? Obviously, I don't want to do that, so I'm going to undo that. I can put a gradient on the text, right, which could look cool. I could put a pattern on it. Again, you can't really see the pattern, I don't think, too well. I could put an outer glow on it, make it even bigger, but I think that makes it a little too hard to read. And then for this one, I put a drop shadow on it. Let's see what it looks like without the drop shadow. So I think it still looks good without the drop shadow, but I'm going to put it on there just to make it pop a little bit more. So once I've decided what I want to do for effects on that layer, I hit OK. And then it'll show up right here. And I can always adjust that. Like if I hit the drop down arrow, I can decide what I want to include and what I don't include. So maybe I want to look at where this is my intro, my stand first. Maybe I want to add some effects onto here. And when it comes to body copy, leave body copy alone. But maybe like as a pull quote, or maybe you want to bring in like, for your intro or stand first, you want to add a little bit of value to it or a shadow or something. That's fine. Yeah, but just don't want to get too busy. If it affects how readable something is, or if it just becomes too visually stimulating, people aren't going to read it. It's going to hurt their eyes and they're not going to want to do it. So I'm going to come over here and let's just see what it would look like if I did one of these. So that's what it looks like if I have a bevel and emboss. Let me see what drop shadow looks like. I think that's okay. I'm going to keep the drop shadow only. I don't want it to get too busy, so I'm going to hit OK. And again, I can adjust all of these. I can adjust how much of it you see. I can adjust the angle on which the drop shadow is. I can play around with all of these things. Okay, so I'm just going to hit OK on that. All right, so now let's move on to what we're going to be covering this week. So we'll come back over here. So we need to put in body copy, and I need to think about where I want a drop cap, page numbers, footer, and a pull quote. So I'm going to start with like the easiest one, which is page numbers and a footer. So page numbers and a footer are going to go in this bottom section. I'm going to turn my grid back on. So I'm going to go to show and grid. And I'm going to bring down another line here, another guide to help me keep it nice and even. So I'm going to turn off my grid. Okay, so I'm just going to use, I know it's kind of hard because the color is very similar to what's behind it. but I'm going to use that as a guide to help me with my page number and my footer. So I just use the zoom tool right here. And again, you can always do a zoom in and then hold on Alt and zoom out, or it's up here too, plus and minus. So if you want to zoom in or zoom out, that's where you can do it. Okay. So I want to put a page number down here. So I'm going to go and get my type tool. I'm going to click down here. Now it's going to show the last thing I chose. So I don't want this font for this. Oh, maybe this one might be okay. But the size is way too big. We need it to be way smaller. So let me see what 12 looks like. 12 might be okay. The color is not going to work because I'm not going to be able to see that color down there. So I've got to choose a different color. So I'm going to go to choose like this dark blue. See if I can find one even darker. So it really stands out. I'm going to drop it down so it's super dark. I don't want it to be black. I still want it to be a little bit of blue. So let's say this is page, I don't know, 20. I'm just going to make a page. And let me see what this looks like if I zoom in. So I'm going to say I might want to move this down. I think I can make it a little bit bigger. So let me select it. Let's see what 14 looks like. Maybe I can go to 16. I'm just testing it to kind of see what fits. I think 18 might work for this. All right, let me back up. I'm going to hold down Alt and zoom out. Yeah, I can read the number really clearly here. Like it's not too big, it's not too distracting. I can see it's a page number. I'm using my grid lines or my guidelines to kind of help me keep it in that place. Now, it doesn't make sense for me to put a page number over here because we have this image here, and this image is so busy, nobody's going to see a page number. But if you have an image on the other side where it has a little bit of a blank space, then maybe you could put a page number like next to the image if it's not like something as busy as this. So it's kind of up to you based on what the image is or where your image is located, like where you put a page number. Make sure you have a page number at least on one of these two pages. So if I was going to do both page numbers, like I could always put like a block of color behind this and then put it over here if I really wanted to. And this would be page 19 and then page 20. You make up whatever number you want, okay? Now the other thing I want to do, and I'm going to come back to this visual just so you can see it. Right next to our page number is a footer. And you can see right here, it's pretty small. It's smaller than a page number. It's not bold. And it could be a website. It could be the name of the magazine. It's really your call. So you can make something up. So I'm going to zoom back in. And because I know I'm not going to be able to put anything on the other side because this picture is so, so busy, I'm just going to zoom in over here. And I'm going to put something. I'm going to keep it pretty small. And I'm just going to type in music magazine. I'm just making something up. You can make up your name of your magazine. You can use your artist name. Be creative. It's up to you. Now, I don't want it to be the same as my page number because I want it to be a little bit different, smaller like the other one, not bold. So I need to find a different font. So let me find something that's still kind of skinny feeling. Yeah, that one would work. All right, but size-wise, it needs to be reduced. It's too big. Let's try 12. Okay, and then let me kind of position it where I want it to go. Give a little bit of space by my 20. I still think it's a little bit too big. I'm going to make it just a touch smaller. Let's try 10 pixels. Yeah, I think that's better. Okay, let's zoom out and look at the whole thing. So we always want to like kind of see it up close, see what it looks like, and then adjust it if we need to. All right, I think that's not too bad. It still stays consistent. I'm going to move it over. I don't want it to be right on top of my 20. I want it to be able to have its own space. So I'm just like fussing with it until I like where it's at. Okay, so I've got my page number, my footer. Those two things are done. All right, let's come back over here. So page number and footer. We have a pull quote, we have a drop cap, and we have a body copy. Now for body copy, I got to think about my drop cap. I can add in at the end, once I have my body copy in. But my pull quote might affect where my body copy is going to go. So let's look at the visual so we can have just a reference point. So look at the body copy here. This is a 2-column setup. And we don't have anything over here because we have a really busy image. So if you have a busy image that's taking up most of your page, then don't put body copy on both pages, okay? Just put the written part on where you have the space for it. But if I'm looking here, there's 2 columns set up, but here's the pull quote in the middle of it. So it kind of depends on where you want to put the pull quote. If we look at this one, the pull quote's off to the side here, and they actually stopped the body copy, and they have the body copy kind of running along the picture, which is a really interesting thing you could do. So if you have that kind of space and you want to work with it like that, you can do that. But you could also nudge her over and just have body copy on this side. Okay, but this is her pull quote. So I have to kind of think about the pull quote first before I put in the body copy. So let's come over here and let me look at my picture. My picture is pretty busy. I really don't have a place in my picture for a pull quote. So I really don't know like if it would work over here. So I'm going to think like what would make sense. This is all pretty symmetrical, like which means it's even on both sides. Like if I look at this page, it's pretty close to even. So maybe I'll put my pull quote in the middle. Okay? So let's bring in if we look at the visuals here, this one it's just some text that has it's highlighted. This one, it's just text. It kind of has a white box around it because the whole background is kind of that white color. So maybe I put a box behind it that's one of these blue colors in here, or maybe this light color. And then I put my pull quote in the middle. So I'm going to start by putting it in a shape. So I'm going to make a rectangle. And I'm going to say I want my pull quote to be like, I don't know. Let me put it like here in the middle. Something kind of like that. All right, so the first thing it does, it always automatically fills it with the color, and it always fills it with red because it wants you to know, hey, you need to fill this with a different color. So I'm going to come up here where my shape tool specific things are, and I'm going to choose fill, and I'm going to kind of play around. Let's see what colors like look good for this. So I'm leaning towards something lighter. Yeah, the green is too much. The blues are too close. I could go with the dark blue and have it with white writing. I don't know. I think I'm kind of liking the lighter color. So I'm just going to go with something kind of slightly blue. And again, I'm pulling these colors from my picture so that nothing feels too disjointed. Nothing feels like out of the way, like it doesn't fit, because my picture and all the rest of it, all the colors kind of fall into the same thing because I pull my colors from the picture. All right, and then it says stroke. It has an X through it. Let's see what it looks like if I actually put an outline around it, which is what the stroke is. So I can choose a color or a gradient or a pattern. I'm gonna look at colors. And let's choose like a dark blue, kind of what's from the picture over here. We go a little bit darker. Yeah, that's pretty good. I could also put some effects on it. So let's go down here and we'll play around with some effects. And I really think, not the bevel emboss, but I really think the drop shadow, just to be consistent with everything else, could make it stand out. So maybe I do a little bit less. I don't want it to be seen quite as much. So I'm gonna bring down the opacity. Make it a little bit smaller in size. We'll just adjust what we see. Oh, that's better. Okay, there we go. Make sure we're on drop shadow. There we go. And I want it to be not so far away. Keep it kind of close. All right, that's much better. Okay, so now I want to think about, okay, I can put what I want to put inside of here. So I'm just going to type, this is where my pull quote would go, but you actually put something in there. So don't, like how I have headlined, remember you're going to actually type something. Don't have the word headline in there. But let's go in and I'm going to put something inside here. So I'm going to draw a text box. So I just click and drag and I'm going to type inside here. Now it's going to go with the last thing I had, which is from my musicmagazine.com footer. I think I'm going to keep it, what was that other one? This one. And let's see, we want to be bigger than 10. but I don't want to be quite as big as my intro. So it's kind of a fine line, right? So I have to kind of see like size-wise what works. I'm gonna try something like, let's try 22 and we'll see. And I'm gonna keep it to this dark color. This color is fine because it's a light background. All right, so let's write, this is where I would type my pull quote for my project. And usually for a pull quote, you don't want it to be a really long, like you don't want to have a ton of words in this. It's just a quick little thing to get people engaged. So again, you could put a lyric from a song, you could put something that your musician said, or your band person, like somebody from your band said. It's up to you. Okay. So I'm looking at this and I think it just needs to fill the space a little bit more. So let me try it a little bit bigger. 26. 28 feels better to me. Okay, I think I'm gonna leave it at 28. Let's see what this looks like. I'm gonna move it down a little bit just to center it. All right, so I've got my pull quote in here. Now I'm gonna figure out what I'm gonna do with my body copy, and I need my drop cap. So let's come back over here. So we're gonna do the body copy, and remember we're just bringing in, copying and pasting lorem ipsum. So we'll bring that in, and then I'm gonna have a drop cap, which is a larger first letter. So if we're bringing in lorem ipsum, the first letter is L. So I know that I have to make a bigger L. So let's make some spaces for our body copy. So I'm gonna come in with my type tool and I'm gonna start. I don't wanna start because I'm gonna have my drop cap right here. So I wanna think about that space and how I wanna adjust it. So I think I'll start, like right around here and bring my first bit of body copy right in there. And I'm gonna keep the same size and the same color for right now and then adjust it if I need to. So let's go over and get some lorem ipsum and let's see what it looks like. So if I just type in lorem ipsum, and again, you can go to, any of the generators, and we're just gonna copy and paste it and bring it over. So we just need one paragraph to start. So we'll do one paragraph, generate, and then let's see if we can just copy it. All right, let's see if we can bring it over. And can we paste it? Okay, so it started to bring it in. All right, so it's too big. I know I need to make it smaller. So let me select it all. And you can see what it did is it's all the way down here. So let's start by making it smaller. Usually standard size is somewhere between 11 and 12 pixels. So let's see what 12 looks like. That's better. Now I don't want to have it center justified. See how there's right justified, left justified, all up here, and center justified? I want to make it so that it's consistent with what we would normally see on a page, which is left. And I think that fits pretty good, actually. Let me see what this looks like. I'll take it off. Yeah, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in. Size-wise, I think it's okay. I mean, I could go with a simpler font so it's not so bulky, but I think I'll leave it for right now because it's easy for you guys to see. I'm going to come in, though, and I'm going to make a little space for my drop cap. So I'm going to just start putting in some spaces here and move this top line over. Just to give myself some room right here for a drop cap to go. All right, so let's come back and I'm gonna zoom out. So now I can put my drop cap in there. So let me come to my type tool. And I'm gonna click and drag and just make a box right here. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna delete that first letter, the L for lorem ipsum, and I'm gonna come in and put a drop cap that's a letter L that's large. So let's go in. I don't want to have it the same font as what my body copy is. So let me choose something crazy. Now we've got this one for our headline. What about this? What would this look like? Let's try it. It's gonna be larger. So I'm thinking, let's start pretty big. We'll start at like 30 and see what it looks like. I don't know what color. I don't know what color is going to work, but I'm going to leave it with the dark blue and see how it looks, okay? So let's go in here and I'm going to type the letter L. All right, so that's not bad. Let me make it a little bit bigger. And again, this is a perfect place to show off with a fancy font. Let's see what it looks like with one of these. See, my concern with this one, with choosing this one again, is it's too distracting. Like it's so close to that. Like that I think people, like it would just be too difficult to read. So I'm just testing on some different ones to see how they look. Yeah, so I'm just gonna go with the one that I chose first, I think. Yeah, because it still has a little bit of a feel with a curve at the bottom, the way this font has a curve at the bottom, but it's not exactly this font and it's not distracting. Like it doesn't pull you down like you don't want it to be like somebody looking at headline and then L. That doesn't make sense. So let's see what this looks like if I turn it off. Yeah, that's pretty good. Okay, so let me go in and adjust my body copy so it lines up a little bit better. And I'm gonna take out that first L and let's backspace and get it kind of closer to that. Let's zoom in and see what we're looking at here. I think it might be a little bit too close. I'm gonna put one more space in there. Make sure I'm on the right thing. This one. Yeah, just to give a little bit of room there. Okay, let's back up and let's look at this. All right, so there's my first section. And again, I'm looking at this and I'm thinking like this body copy is too bulky. Like it just wouldn't normally be like that. So I think I'm gonna go in and just adjust that real quick. Choose something that doesn't have so much bulk to it. It becomes like too busy, I think. So let me come up here and let me choose something that's a little bit easier to read. Maybe not as bulky. That one looks pretty good. Let's try that. Let's see what that looks like. Yes, okay. So now you can see that visual hierarchy. This stands out the most. This stands out second. Your eye kind of goes to this third now. Then maybe fourth is the byline, and then fifth is the L, and then the body copy sixth. So it's kind of like organized by size. All right, let's get the rest of this body copy in here so we can finish it up. So I'm gonna come in with my type tool, and I'm gonna just kind of draw a section. So I wanna have a paragraph in here, and I'm leaving a space next to where my pull quote is because I don't want to have it too close. I need that little bit of negative space, that breathing room. So I'm gonna come back over, copy this lorem ipsum, come back and paste it. Hopefully it'll work. Let's try again. Here we go. Size might need to be adjusted, but I think right now we'll just get it in here and then I can move it around if I need to. Because if I look at this size, this one looks a little bit different. Let me double check it. So this one is Ben Cardo, and it's 12, and then this one. It's a different font, that's why. Okay, we got too many layers in here. Let me get rid of some of these extras. This is our drop cap. We're gonna delete that, delete this. Okay, so we've got this is our drop cap. This is our second paragraph. So I'm going to change that paragraph, and I want to make sure that they all have the same font as this one. So if I go to the type tool for this one, this is my font. So I want to make sure that it's this size. So 12, color and font should be the same. So I'm going to go to this one. Let's fix that real quick. So I'm going to go in, choose this, make sure it's that font. Same font, because you don't want a different font. There it is. And make sure it's 12, and it is the same color, and it's left justified right here. Okay, that looks pretty good. I think I can even move it over a little bit more. Let me see. Again, I don't want it to get too close. So see how it moves too close with that one? So I'm just going to go back a little bit. All right, so that one's done. And I think I'm going to move it down just a touch with my arrows, just to kind of give a little bit of a space in between paragraphs. Let me make sure that this is all the same font because it's looking kind of funny to me. So come back over to my type tool, make sure I select all, make sure it's all this font, it's all size 12, and it's all left justified. Okay. All right, so let me bring in one more paragraph down here. So I'm going to do the same thing with my type tool. I'm going to come in here, and I want my last paragraph to be right here. And I'm going to make sure I have the right font size and everything else. Bring it in, that looks good. I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to put another bit of body copy. And again, I'm working around my pull quote so that I can kind of be flexible with everything where it's going. I'm going to click on here, drop it in. That looks good. Now that one's about the same size as what's going down here. So why don't I just copy that and bring it over? So I'm going to just do a duplicate layer, click on my move tool and bring it down. Perfect. All right, so I just need to do what, two or three paragraphs over here. So I'll bring over my type tool, draw a box where the columns are. Click in it, and I'm just doing Control V because I only had to copy it once. I copied it from over on Lorem Ipsum here. I just hit copy, and then I'm pasting it over and over again. And again, you can always duplicate the layer. You can adjust it if you need to. That looks pretty good. I'm going to do another one. So I'm going to make it a little bit shorter here, so I don't run into my pull quote. And then let's do one final one right down in here. Click and then V, Control V. And then let's look at it. Let's see how it looks. Do I want to move anything around? Like, where do I see any issues? Like, do I want to have some more spacing in between things? We can always resize it a little bit. So if I was just kind of being a little bit finicky, I can see right here, there's some things that are kind of close. They're touching very closely here. So I might want to put a little bit more of a space in between that. So when I'm going to put it in, maybe I make it a little bit smaller. So let me see if we can just resize it. Maybe we can scale it down. So I'm just going to move it over just a touch to give myself a little bit more room. And I'm just going to transform and scale. That one looks okay. I don't think I need to move that one. Go on to the next one. Transform and scale. Just move it over just a little bit to give myself a little bit more breathing room there. Edit, transform, and scale. And I'm just going to make this one a little bit skinnier so I have a little bit more space. That's okay, I think. Let's go to the next one. Edit and transform and scale. Yeah, this one I noticed was a little too close. So I'm going to move it over a touch here. Just move over a touch there. All right, let me see what that looks like. Yeah, see how it has like a little bit more of a gap and nothing's like right on top of one another. Okay, let's turn off these guidelines. Let's make sure we have everything. So I'm going to come back over here to our requirements. We have a drop cap, yes, page numbers, footer, pull quote, and body copy. Perfect. We already had the headline, the image, the byline, and the intro. So we have all the requirements. Let's go up to view, and we're going to turn off the guides. And there's our final layout. All done. Woo! Now we have a lot of like layers over here with our body copy, but it's just the easiest way to kind of space it and position them individually. If you have like a big block of text, you may not be able to kind of get it to work the way you want it. So by kind of resizing it and doing them in little chunks, then you can kind of adjust it on an individual basis if you need to. So like when I'm looking at this, everything seems to flow pretty good over here. This gap looks a little bit too big just compared to that one. So I might go through and see where I'm at. And I always just check if I'm not sure what layer it is, because these are all lorem ipsum, obviously. So just to check where I'm at, I just turn on and off the eye. So I'm going to make sure I'm on my move tool, and I'm just going to bump this up just a little bit more. Okay, just so it's like evenly spaced. Yeah, I think that looks good to me. All right, so whenever you're finished, you're going to go up to File. You're going to save as a PSD. Remember, the PSD version of the file has all of these layers in it, so that's your version. So save as a PSD. It'll save it to your computer, right? Then before you move on to your last saving, I would do this step. Go over to Google. Make sure you're logged in and go to your Google Drive. Go to New, File Upload, and you're going to go to this download right here. So I'm going to go to Download, and it should show up here. There it is. Music Layout, Open. And now it's uploading this right here. So I'm going to update the existing. So it's uploading it into your drive. That way it doesn't matter if you close down your computer. It doesn't matter, if you're on a different computer, it'll save it to your drive and you can open up your drive wherever you're at, okay? So that's your first step. Your second step, in order to turn it in order to turn in your final, is to go up to File and then to go to Export as a JPEG. And remember, a JPEG doesn't have any of these layers. It's just like it's taking a picture of it. It's just a flattened image. So we'll go to Export as JPEG, then hit Save. And then you see the JPEG, JPG right here will show up. And this is the one that you turn in because it's a smaller file size. And again, some people have accidentally turned in their PSD file and it's worked, but don't guarantee. Like you cannot be for sure because the file sizes are too big for Google Classroom. Okay? So you're going to turn in your JPG file. So you'll come back over here to your assignment and you'll go to your student work, or you could turn it in right up here. Remember, you guys have like a little box. I don't have that because I'm obviously not a student, but you'll have a little turn-in box and you can upload that file right here, okay? So I'm gonna go through all of the ones from last week, give you some feedback. I know that we had kind of a crazy day for Tuesday, but I wanted to make sure that I had the video available for you guys to reference and so you could work independently, and then we'll touch base when we have class again this week, later on this week, okay? So go ahead and get started with your stuff. And then as you're working, when you run into issues, just go ahead and message me and let me know. All right, guys.